What is up, everybody? We are back at the Cinema Wave podcast. We're here to talk to you guys about recapping the 76th annual Emmy Awards. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Liz Seiko.
Hello, hello.
And Liz didn't get to give her predictions. I did that episode
No.
with Zach. You guys can check that out, see how we did. But there was a lot of surprises in terms of awards and things. But we're going to try to break this down. We're going to go a little broad in the beginning, but then we're going to do this thing where we're going to say three things that we thought went really well with the ceremony and three things that we thought could have been different. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to completely correlate to the actual ceremony. I'll actually give my example first, maybe to Liz if you need a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that was talked about at this year's ceremony, which is ironic because it's the second ceremony of the year because of the actor strike and the writer strike pushing the awards to January. So this is our second Emmys within like 9 months. So it feels a lot like how the last show was. But one of the big things for me was that, and we talked about this in the live stream, The Bear is not a comedy. And it was touched upon by a lot of people, and it led to a lot of things. So when we did our recording, our live stream back in January, that was giving, it's very confusing for the people that might not be able to keep up with the calendar. But the Emmys that happened in January were celebrating the first season of The Bear, the debut season of The Bear. And it won a ton of awards. Eben won, Jeremy Allen White won. I believe Io also won for that. The show won for Best Comedy Series. And even then they were joking at the ceremony about like how it's not really a comedy. Now you come back to this season, which like season 2 is the season for people. Like everybody loves season 2. It has the Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah.
It has Lionel Boyce's solo episode. You have a big turn for Richie. And I think it hurt it. I think it actually hurt the show as a whole and the voters because The Bear, and I also think part of it was that the ceremony kind of thought that they were going to win because they put it on last and Hacks winds up winning. Now, I've only watched some of Hacks. I think it's a great show. So it's nothing against Hacks, but the thing is The Bear is miscategorized at this point. And I think that it's a massive con going forward, and season 3 especially is like really not funny. Like so much of that show is tense, and it's also by a lot of people's standards the weakest season of the bunch. And it just came out in June, and now we're celebrating season 2. It's very confusing.
It's very.
All of it is confusing. So that's my first con would be like the fact that The Bear is categorized as a comedy, I think ultimately hurt it in winning the night's biggest award, which it rightfully deserved, in my opinion. I thought season 2 of the show is like one of the best seasons of TV I've ever watched. So that is a con for me.
Are we going right into these?
We can.
Okay. All right.
You can give me a pro. You can give me a con.
I'll give a pro. One of the speeches that like really made me laugh, and honestly, people probably didn't think it was that funny, but I thought that he handled it very well, was when John Oliver won.
Very much in the news.
Very much in the news. For anybody that didn't watch it, so he won for Outstanding Scripted Variety Series. And it was just last week tonight with John Oliver versus Saturday Night Live. And John Oliver won, and he goes up, starts thanking people, starts like thanking his like wife. Then he like accidentally calls like his son Hudson husband. So he's already tripping over his words, and like he's clearly just like overwhelmed. But then he starts being like, and I want to like thank our dog, like our family dog. We loved her so much. And then all of a sudden they start playing the off music. And then he says, he's like, we had to put her down. This like
he goes, and this is the perfect
music cue because we had to put her down, unfortunately. And they're playing this sad music while he's like talking about his dead dog. And he played it off so well, though. He really like made it a hilarious bit where he's like, I feel like Sarah McLachlan right now. And then he's like, you know, this award isn't just for her. It's for all the dogs. All the dogs are good boys and girls. You all deserve treats. I don't know. He just handled it so well. It was really funny to me.
Okay. I like that one. It was a standout moment. There were some great comedic bits. Dan and Eugene Levy come in as hosts. We both, I think, approve of them as hosts.
I actually think that they should host more often.
I agree.
Really enjoyed them and I don't think I would have enjoyed it if it was just one of them.
I agree.
I think it was the combination of the two.
Yeah. I think that a lot of time 2 hosts actually works really well. Like Steve Martin and Martin Short have done really good with it. The only example that I could think of where it did not work was when James Franco and Anne Hathaway did it. for the Oscars. I don't know if you ever watched
Wait,
that ceremony.
Why do I like not remember
It
this
was
at
bad.
all? Was it really?
It's regarded as like one of the worst hosts ever.
I feel like I don't remember this at
It
all.
was rough. It was a rough go.
No, I think that both of them were just like, there was also, you mentioned before, an age gap to be able to be like, okay, the older audience will be able to laugh at like Eugene's older jokes, and then like we'll have a little bit of a younger, I don't know. I just feel like the age gap really helped have younger viewers interested.
Yeah. Plus, we get the Schitt's Creek reunion at the end, which was
Yes.
amazing. And if you're a fan of Schitt's Creek, it's just, that show. I miss that show so much.
I know.
That show was such a
Maybe
feel-good
I'll
show.
binge it in all my free time. In all my free time.
All right. So I started with a con. So I guess I'll go to a pro.
Yes.
One of the pros that I thought was a really great moment, and it was really admirable about the Emmy Academy to do this, was John Leguizamo talking about DEI representation, giving him a moment. And John Leguizamo, he comes out and he said he took out a full page ad in the New York Times discussing how they needed more representation for Latin actors and just diverse actors of all different kinds at the ceremony. And one of the things that I thought, and he did it with grace, he did it with comedy, and it really worked out really well. One of the things that I thought was so telling of his experience, because John Leguizamo is a veteran actor. Like, I'm pretty sure he's in his 50s. He's been around for a really long time. I've actually seen him live. He's amazing in his one-man show. But he talks about growing up and trying to, like, watching TV and being such an avid TV watcher and not seeing anyone that would reflect his experience. And he said he would watch Star Trek and there was no Mexicans. And he's like, so there's going to be no Mexicans in the future. Like, there's not going to be any Latin-based people in the future. And he said that the character he related to the most, because he saw it the most when he was a kid, was Speedy Gonzalez from Looney Tunes. So it was just really, it was attention grabbing, but it was telling the right story at the right time. And I thought it was admirable, not only for him to go up and do that and do what he did for the New York Times, but also for the Academy to give him that spotlight after he went and, I mean, he didn't attack them, but he did it as like, listen, like, this is something that I'm upset by.
Yeah.
As are other people that want DEI representation. And this is what I want to do with it. And they said, you know what? Why don't you come and speak your piece at the awards? He doesn't get played off. They treat it as if he's an award recipient. So that was a really great moment for me in terms of just being able to highlight the realities of what the industry are and just the sort of the cultural moment that we're in.
Yeah.
So that was a big pro for me.
No, I agree. I loved that moment. I think it was also nice because it was really like lifting up the veil a little bit of just being like, let's call it out for what it is, rather than keeping your mouth shut and not talking about it at all. Because I feel like a lot of these award shows just like smooth over everything.
Yeah.
They never actually confront like the issues that are happening.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Okay, so I'll do one of my things that I really didn't like, and that was Jimmy Kimmel made a really bad joke for me. It was after the, what do you call it?
In memoriam segment.
Yes. Literally, it ends. They stop playing the music and he comes on stage and he's like, okay, and the award for best death goes to, and like, I don't know. I just feel like there's times for like jokes, and if I was an audience member whose relative was like in that show, I would have been like, really? Like, you couldn't have let us all have just like a softer moment of like acknowledging their time rather than like making like, and no, I feel like nobody laughed. Everybody was kind of like, ooh.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting because I feel like most times in those ceremonies, they actually usually go to commercial after the end.
Well, I feel like you should.
Yeah.
I feel
give a moment for your audience to say, man, like, what great, take some time nostalgic and be like, man, I miss this actor and what they were able to do with all this. I mean, think about like even like James Earl Jones was in that in memoriam segment and he died last week? Like, that's fresh. You know what I mean? Like in the heads of people. And
well, and then Jimmy started talking about, who was it?
Bob Newhart.
Yeah, he just started talking about him, which I just feel like it's like, yes, he had a huge body of work, but why does he get his own shout out?
Yeah.
Why doesn't anybody else get their own shout out?
It felt like
it felt weird.
It did feel weird, and I think part of it also. So Kimmel's obviously done the awards for all these networks for so long now.
Yeah.
And he's an ABC guy. That's his network. And yeah, I just think it didn't play well at all, and I didn't think it was an appropriate thing for him to do. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not the host this time, so let me get my moment." And I was like,
You think they proved that joke, or he just was like, I'm gonna
"No,
do
I
it?
think he just did it."
He just did it,
Yeah, I
right?
think he
Because
did
I don't
it.
think it landed at all.
Yeah, I think the Bob Newhart thing, they might have, because they probably had a relationship, both being comedians and
and he
things like
came out
that.
and was like, I'm gonna do a joke first, and then
It was weird.
it was
It
awkward.
was definitely
very
awkward. So that is one of Liz's cons. Another pro for me, which is kind of off the heels of what Leguizamo was talking about, was Liza Colon-Zayas winning Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series. So that was another thing where I was not surprised that she was nominated. She's great in the show. She continuously gets better in the show. But it was partly because she had her standout solo episode in season 3. And I talked about this with Zach in the predictions. I was like, I don't think she's going to win this year. And the heavy hitters that she was up against. I mean, she's up against Carol Burnett, who's like, 91 nominated, which is crazy. 91 years old being nominated is crazy. Meryl Streep, the two Janelle James and Cheryl Lee Ralph, who I think are just unbelievable in Abbott. And I think that Ava, like I keep saying this, I'm like, Janelle James is like, Cheryl Lee Ralph already has an Emmy for Abbott. Like Janelle James as Ava is so good in season 3 of Abbott, and I'm like waiting for her to get her moment because she's gonna get it. That I was just kind of surprised by Liza winning, but it just had me like, I'm not kidding. I was in tears when she won. Like it was such an emotional moment. You could feel the weight of that moment.
Yeah.
And just looking at the rest of the people that were nominated, and it was just like crazy. It was just unbelievable to see her getting that recognition by her peers and talking about, like, she's been a working actress for such a long time, and I believe she was like one of like 4 Latin actresses that have ever been nominated in the category, and she won over complete heavyweights of the industry, and she's fantastic in the show. And if she won for season 2, then I think she's already probably a front runner for season 3, because her solo episode in season 3 was a lot of people's favorites.
Yeah.
So I think that it was just a really great moment, and it had me. There's usually like one moment every award show where I'm like,
oh my
yeah,
God.
there's one person winning. I'm like, oh, this is so deserved. And I didn't pick her for my prediction because I just thought they were going to honor her for season 3, but
yeah,
I was really happy that she won. So that was a big pro for me as well in terms of the awards.
That was a big pro for me too. Another person who I was actually really happy that won, even though I have not seen Fargo, was
Lamorne Morris.
Yeah, because I'm just a big fan of like New Girl, and like I've seen him. He's one of those actors that is a working actor. Not everybody knows who he is. Not everybody remembers his name. People just kind of like, oh, I kind of know his face. And so the fact that he is able to go against some of these big names in this category and come out winning just shows that like some of these awards are not all about fame and who has the bigger name. It actually is about, okay, whose performance at the end of the day, whose work is the best.
Yeah.
And so I'm really happy that he actually, because I think this is his first time winning.
I think this is the first time ever nominated.
Well, there you go.
For a major award.
There
and
he
was up against Robert Downey Jr., who plays 6 characters in one show.
That's what I mean. Like
it was a major win for him. It was a major win for Fargo. It's another show that Zach and I talked about that too. Fargo, they're always nominated. They haven't gotten a lot of wins over the years. So for him to be highlighted, especially, he was one of like 4 cast members that were nominated for the show, and he's the only one that comes out with a win.
Yeah.
It was a big moment for sure. I totally agree. A negative for me, a con. The TV dad segment was so awkward, and it was the first reunion of the night. They did these different things. So in January, they did all anniversaries and real reunions of classic television shows.
Yeah.
They had some of that in this one, but they also brought in these like archetypes where they had different people that played those archetypes on their own series come out and do these segments. The first one of the night was TV dads. And it was Damon Wayans from My Wife and Kids, George Lopez from The George Lopez Show, and Jesse Tyler Ferguson from Modern Family. It just, first of all, the joke didn't land, but even more so, their 3 comedic styles together didn't work at all for me.
They also like didn't even look at each other, I feel
like. It didn't feel like they were in, like, they liked each other. Like, they just put 3 random people together, where it was like, it worked. In a segment where it did work for me is when they did the antagonists. And they did Giancarlo Esposito, best known for playing Gus Fring in Breaking Bad, Kathy Bates from Misery, and then they did Anthony Starr, who is in The Boys, obviously, as Homelander. And like they even get a moment of comedy in there that worked so much more. And
Yeah.
Kathy Bates is like, you know how hard it was for me to get a date after doing Misery. Like that works so much better than the TV Dad segment. And I also had this overwhelming thing throughout this ceremony where it felt like they were trying to do the member berries too much. Like they were like, do you remember these people that all played these characters? And it felt even weird when they did the TV moms too. Like it felt a little awkward to me. I mean, they did it with the coaches with Jane Lynch and
That I thought actually was a funny bit.
no, like some of the bits worked,
I
but
liked
some of
that
it,
bit.
some like even the happy, like I love Henry Winkler, I love Ron Howard. The Happy Days bit for me was like fine, like
Okay, that didn't even feel like a bit to me though. That just felt like they were on stage just being like
they literally
I
said
think-
we're gonna put you guys back in we're gonna dress the set like it's Happy Days, and you guys are just gonna talk. And then we're going to have to eventually have the Fonz turn on the jukebox and we're going to play Happy Days. And then they had no idea what the hell they were doing.
I truly feel like they both just looked at each other on stage and were like, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm
literally.
good. What? Oh, cool. We're here.
Yeah. So I'm
Nice.
over this trend of just doing it worked for the first ceremony. Fine.
Mhm.
You don't need to do it again.
Well, I think it was really like nostalgic for the first ceremony this year. And now it's just kind of like, all right, give us a new concept.
Well, they're trying to pigeonhole people into things to make their concept work.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before we started rolling, but like there's so much with this show that was a carbon copy of what happened 8 months before because I
Mhm.
felt like the Academy was like, well, we
don't
can't
have-
put on two different
They're
shows.
probably like, we don't have time to make new concepts.
Which is probably true, but at the same time, I don't know, a little lazy for me.
Mhm.
So that was another con for me.
Do I do con? What
Whatever
did I
you want to
just
do. You
I
can
did a positive, so I'll do con now.
Okay.
I guess just going off of like the bits, I truly feel like there's if the bit is not funny, cut it. Like why do we still have it in there? I think the two that really for me just like did not hit was I'm forgetting her name completely from Bridgerton.
Nicola Coughlan.
Yeah, when she's making like that joke about like, oh, the dogs, the like service animals we're here to honor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I
was a bad
get it.
joke.
I get it. It's like a funny thing, but there's no way she's like that dumb. And like, that's a stupid joke. It's
Yeah.
not funny.
I agree.
Like,
I think they should stop having actors that aren't comfortable with
Aren't-
comedy doing comedy bits.
or I just feel like
Because it works. The other thing is that to me, it's so overtly glaring when you have real comedic talent doing things like. So we've talked about this a little. Like I haven't watched Only Murders yet, and I know you're like it. You kind of like it, but you don't love it as much as a lot of people do. The three of them being on like Steve Martin saying to Martin Short, "You look like every single women's tennis star put together ever," is hilarious to me.
And because
Because
I
they're
think they wrote their
comedians.
own jokes.
100%.
100. They said we're gonna make our own bit up.
Yeah.
These other people are getting scripts handed to them from the writing team of the Emmys, and they're being like, "This is funny. This is funny,"
Yeah.
and they're just like,
That's why all the Will
"Okay."
Ferrell and the Kristen Wiig bits over the years too like
Hysterical,
work so
yeah.
much better because they're real comedians with comic timing and they want to do these things.
Yeah, and so like that one I just feel like they need to, or even the one with like Evan Moss when they're like sitting at that.
Oh, the
Wait,
Johnny
we
Walker
need to
thing?
talk
All right.
about that.
So, guys,
what happened?
Our last con is going to be combined and it's going to be this.
right? What was this?
So I read an article about this actually on Hollywood Reporter the next
Something
day.
went wrong. I feel like
Vinny, because you haven't watched the ceremony, I'm just going to paint a picture for you.
Mhm.
We returned from commercial. Eben Moss Backrack and one of the stars of Red, White, and Royal Blue, which was a movie on Amazon. I don't know the actor's name. But Eben's back there and he's talking to a bartender at a bar where there's only glasses of Johnny Walker Blue. There is not another bottle of alcohol behind the bar. And he's having a conversation with the bartender and the other actor comes over and he goes, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And he goes, "I'm excited to present this award with you." It's a bit. It's like a segment that they're doing backstage, but it's also lit differently, like it's trying to be cinematic. And then he said, "But like we could always have a drink even before we present." He goes, "We just have to remember to drink responsibly." Which is the Johnny Walker sort of like what is the catchphrase? And then they look at the camera and like wink. And then they go, "Please welcome Evan Moss Backrack and whoever," and they walk out. And it's so awkward. And Evan's just like, "Well, that was fun, wasn't it?" It's one of the most glaringly
No, it was how
awkward
uncomfortable
moments.
you feel right now. It was so weird watching it.
It's super awkward. And the whole audience, like when he goes, "That was fun, wasn't it? We should do that again sometime." The whole audience starts like being like,
No, it was weird. And then their mic wasn't there. I don't know. There was definitely something for me that went wrong That part was awkward.
Yeah, the one thing with like not again, this is just the reality of what the situation was. Apparently, they did it because they got a lot of money for it because there was issues with the strikes and things like that, so they wanted more money for the ceremony. So Johnny Walker paid for an ad, and that was what they came up with.
That I would want all my money back if I was Johnny
bad.
Walker. If that
It
was
was
my
really
ad,
rough.
I'd be like, give it
They
back.
might be losing
They
some of
could
their
have
stock
done
dollars.
so much. Like they could have done something completely different. That was not it.
That was not it.
Not
I
it.
agree. Okay, I will give my last pro, and then you can give your last pro.
Okay.
All right. My last pro is going to go for something that we all thought was going to happen, but just the reaction and how awesome it was to just sort of see it sort of all unfold was Shogun winning Best Drama Series. I believe it won 18 Emmys. It was nominated for like 21, which is crazy. It won 14 Creative Arts Emmys. Hiro Sonata won Best Actor in a Drama Series. Anna Sawai won Best Actress in a Drama Series. You still haven't seen it.
No, I have not.
You have to watch it. But what a remarkable show. What a remarkable achievement. And a show that was in development for years. Hiro Sonata was attached to as a producer of the show for decades before it winded up getting made. And Disney came through. Like Disney, they do a lot of stupid shit, but they gave the money when they were working with FX to do the show, and it paid off in a massive way, and it made a lot of stars out of these foreign actors that otherwise were not known. And they also did majority of the show in Japanese. They didn't sort of succumb to the generalized idea of like, we have to do a show in English. It's like the Squid Game effect. Like it had such a major impact on the way that international sort of television series and movies were being perceived by all audiences. So Shogun ultimately winning the night's one of the biggest prizes as Best Drama Series to me was a major standout and a huge pro. And that was one of my favorite moments of the entire night. I know you don't have much to comment on.
I don't because I haven't seen it. I was going to ask you if you think I should watch it.
Yes, I think it's...
You think I'd enjoy it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a brilliantly made show. It's basically... and Vinny and Zach reviewed the whole entire show on our YouTube channel, so definitely check it out if you guys watch the show. But it has like a Game of Thrones feel to it. Like it's big. Oh. It feels big. It feels massive.
Well, I couldn't believe when he was like talking about what it's about, and he's like, "Thank you for choosing to go on this, choosing this script that literally is centered around like a poetry reading."
Yeah, it's a really well made show. Wow. A really really brilliant and well made show. So that was
they
my
won
big
a lot
moments.
of awards.
What's your final pro, Liz?
My final pro is, so I have not seen Baby Reindeer, but I really loved Richard Gadd's speech. So he won 3 times, but one of his speeches, he pretty much calls out the industry of being like, you don't need big IPs, you don't need big stars, and you don't need big like long running shows in order to have a successful one. And he's like, look at Baby Reindeer, we're up here winning. And it just proves that you just need good storytelling at the end of the day. You don't need all of like the like stars and like everything around it. You just need to have a great story and a great team behind it in order to make it a successful show. So I was happy that somebody called out, because some of these shows I think are just starting to get to the point where it's just, let's throw a big star in there and people will watch it. Who cares about the story? Put the story on the back burner. And it's like, no, if you have a great story and like a smaller, newer, greener cast, people are still going to watch it as long as it's a heartfelt and true story that you have a great writing team behind.
I also think, just going off of that point, and I agree with everything you said and everything Richard Gadd said, if you take a look at the winners from this year's Emmys especially, and the shows that were highlighted, I mean, Jean Smart is an iconic television actress.
Yeah.
But with the exception of her, Hannah Einbinder was someone that couldn't get a job in the industry. She was in stand-up comedy.
Yep.
When she was one of the main contributors of what Hacks became. Shogun, as we just talked about, none of those actors were big Hollywood stars. Same thing with Baby Reindeer. I mean, even like the actors from The Bear, like Eben was a character on Girls, but he was like 6th on the call sheet for Girls. And since then we hadn't seen him in a lot of things. He was just sort of a great character actor in the background of these things. And now he's becoming a massive star because of The Bear. Jeremy Allen White, same thing. I mean, people knew him as Lip from Shameless. He's probably the biggest award winner of the night, arguably, maybe besides Jodie Foster. But so many of these streaming services are giving hundreds of millions of dollars to these big IP. I mean, look at like Rings of Power on Amazon and the amount of money
All the
that
Game of
Netflix,
Thrones shows that they're
all of
coming
it.
out with. Like, you don't need that at the end of the day.
You don't. I mean, even like last year, look at Succession too.
I
What
know.
Succession became. So I wholeheartedly agree with what he was saying, and I think this year's ceremony is like a perfect example of like you don't need that to be successful, especially in the world of television and streaming. People just want good stories.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. It was a good Emmys. I did like it a bit more as a whole than the one that was in January, though. I think the award winners of January resembled a lot more of what I am watching on television. So I felt a different way. I love seeing the Bear get a lot of wins. Succession obviously it was over now, so they weren't going to get a lot of wins. They were going to get 0 wins because they weren't nominated for anything. But a lot of shows. If you guys haven't checked out these shows, be sure to take a look at all of them on all the different streaming services and stuff. But that is going to be our full recap of the 76th annual Emmy Awards. We talked about a bunch of stuff. Let us know in the comments who were some of your favorite winners and maybe some award winners that you thought it should have been somebody else that won the category. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. And what did you guys think about the ceremony overall? Do you guys like Dan and Eugene Levy as the host? Do you want to see them continue on? Maybe do it next year, even though it'll be at a different network. We'll see ultimately what happens with that. But just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I am Liz Seiko.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.